Top Commanders insider Ben Standig just gave Commanders fans a bunch of major offseason updates just in time before NFL free agency. And today we're going to be breaking down what Standig says the Commanders' plans are at edge, cornerback, running back, and wide receiver, plus a little bit more. So before we get into the content today, make sure you guys check out our earlier video that we put out on the breaking news that we got on Nick Allegretti getting a one-year extension here at the Washington Commanders, and Marshawn Lattimore getting informed that he will be released before NFL free agency this year. So make sure you guys check that out. I'll put the chip to that one in the top right of today's show, and make sure you guys click that subscribe button to never miss any of our breaking news content here on the Commanders Report. There's going to be a lot more moves than just Allegretti and Lattimore coming up here in these next 2 weeks, guys. So for every trade, every signing, every cut, we got you guys covered. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button to never miss a thing. Now, the first thing we'll talk about today, Ben Standig says that Washington would like to bring back Jacob Martin as a rotational edge rusher, and I'm perfectly okay with that move, guys, if they bring him back for a good price tag. He was a ball of energy last year for the Washington Commanders. He's a good veteran presence. I wouldn't consider him a full-time starter, and I don't think the Commanders view him as a full-time starter either, but as a veteran, that's a good rotational piece on a team-friendly contract. I think they'd like to have him back, and I'd be down for that. But then Standig also said that Von Miller would like to return to the Washington Commanders this year. Von himself has said this, but the fact that Standig is saying that the interest is coming from Von Miller's side and not the Commanders' side probably tells me that the Commanders are going to let the very old Von Miller hit the open market this offseason, and they're probably going to bring in some youth at the edge rusher position. And in particular, Standig says there are 3 free agency edge rusher targets to look out for here, all of which are under the age of 28. So these guys are still relatively young and, can still be long-term pieces for the Washington Commanders. The 3 names he mentions are Boye Mafe, who just got done winning a Super Bowl with the dark side defense there in Seattle, Odafe Oweh, who completely turned around his 2025 season after he was traded from the Ravens to the Chargers, and then Arnold Ebiketie, formerly of the Atlanta Falcons. And all these guys, different projections there in terms of the contracts, but you guys can take a look at what these guys did just last season here in 2025, and you can see just from a numbers standpoint, I would say Odafe Oweh was the most impressive. Obviously, he had the most sacks, he had the most TFLs, and he had the highest PFF grade as well. So, Odafe Oweh, I would say, is probably my number one choice among those 3. And, something that to keep in mind about these particular edge rusher targets that Standig brings up is that none of them are true number 1 level dudes. Like, it's not like he's saying they're going to go out and pursue Trey Hendrickson, for example, or somebody of a higher caliber. It's like, no, they're going to bring in somebody that's a starting capable guy, but they're not going to bring in like a star level edge rusher to pair with Dorrance Armstrong. It's what if that ends up being the case and they sign Boye Mafe or they sign Odafe Oweh or they sign Arnold Ebiketie, that points to me to an edge rusher going in round 1. Somebody that could be your star level number 1 type of guy is going to get taken at number 7 overall, whether that's David Bailey out of Texas Tech, whether that's Ruben Bain out of Miami, whether that's Arvell Reese from Ohio State. If one of those 3 guys makes it to the Commanders at number 7, I think it's a pretty darn good chance that the Washington Commanders will take an edge rusher at number 7 here in the 2026 NFL Draft. But take your pick here. Out of these veteran options on the free agency market, which one would you like to bring in? Type BM for Boye Mafe, type double O's here for Odafe Oweh, or type AE for Arnold Ebiketie. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. So in just a second here, we're going to tell you about our sponsor today at Polymarket. While I tell you about our sponsor today, let me know your answer to today's pinned question down there in the comments. Before we continue on with the video, here is what I'm looking to trade on Polymarket. For tonight's Washington-Houston matchup, Polymarket is giving Washington just an 11% chance to win against Houston tonight, which is absolutely crazy to me, and the value is just too good for me not to take advantage of this opportunity. For that reason, I'm taking Washington at 11% to win this game, $100, and you guys can win $909 if Washington can pull out the dub tonight. Plus, with with Polymarket, you can trade in and out of momentum shifts without getting blocked or penalized. With in-game trading, once Washington gets up, I can either ride it all the way out to the end of the game, or I could sell early and get out a payout before the end of the game. So, for example, if you buy Washington at 11% and then sell at just 30%, you can snag a cool $273 in a nice payout. You can't do this with a traditional sports book, so get started today. Polymarket is legal in all 50 states. Download the app right now to get to the top of the wait list. The only way to do that is by clicking my link in the description and comments below. And a big thank you to Polymarket for sponsoring tonight's edition of the Commanders Report. Now let's talk about what Ben Standig had to say about the cornerback position, where he says that the team is open to a reunion with Jonathan Jones, who was this team's CB3 last year. He got to play quite significant snaps at the end of last season, obviously with the injuries to both Trey Amos and Marshawn Lattimore. But the report also says that the Commanders are going to be looking at other cornerbacks. And, you know, it kind of sounds like to me that they're looking for a good CB3. And that would certainly indicate to me that Mike Sainristil will probably stay on the outside this year, or they're going to be drafting a corner early on in the NFL draft. Obviously, Trey Amos is going to be one of your starters on the outside heading into next year. Marshawn Lattimore is getting cut. So the fact that they're thinking about bringing back Jonathan Jones means that they probably think he's a pretty solid CB3, and they would like to bring him back. But hey, there's a lot of CB3 types around the league, right? So I'm sure they'd be fine bringing in any one of those other types of guys. I think it's more about the contract that they're looking to give, kind of more of a team-friendly deal. And anybody that is the caliber of player that they want, that's willing to take the contract that they're looking to pay, I think that that's somebody that they're going to be willing to bring in as their CB3. And a name to watch there is Jeff Okudah, who was that CB3 for Durante Jones's defense there in Minnesota last year alongside Brian Flores, of course. And Okudah didn't play all that much during the regular season, but played pretty well in the preseason. He was their CB3 throughout the year, and I feel like that's exactly the type of caliber of player that the Commanders are looking for here. The fact that he's got that Durante Jones connection makes it a little bit more likely. So keep your eye on Okudah, but they could go with a reunion with Jonathan Jones, which I'd be perfectly okay with. Also, Standig says that the sense is that the Commanders are going to be re-signing Jeremy McNichols this offseason to be their RB2. Personally, guys, I support that decision. If they want to bring back Jeremy McNichols, I think he's one of the more underrated receiving and third down backs in the National Football League. He's a pretty decent run pass protector as well. He catches the ball really well out of the backfield. He's shifty. He can make some big plays. I think he's a really good third down back option, and that's exactly what the Commanders should be looking for right now with Bill Krosky-Merritt more as an early down option. I think McNichols and Bill have the skill sets needed, especially with a rushing quarterback in the offense here in Jaden Daniels, to be more than effective as a running back duo heading into the NFL draft this year, where they may take a running back at some point. But if they can't bring in Jeremy McNichols, there's some other guys that fit kind of that mold of a third down back that can catch passes out of the backfield. Now, Dowdle and Algier are more, early down options, or at least they have been throughout their careers. But then Rachaad White and Kenneth Gainwell, I would say, are two names to definitely keep your eye on. Gainwell won team MVP for the Pittsburgh Steelers this past year. Definitely an underrated type of running back talent. And then Rachaad White actually went to school at Arizona State with Jaden Daniels. So he's got that connection with Jaden already. I definitely think that he could be in play if Jeremy McNichols decides to go elsewhere, but I would certainly welcome McNichols back if he's willing to come back on a team-friendly deal. Standig also says that Deebo Samuel is likely not going to be getting re-signed by the Washington Commanders. He will likely go elsewhere this offseason, which of course means the Commanders will be in need of another wide receiver too heading into the 2026 season. Standig says these four wide receivers are guys to keep your eye on here as we approach free agency. Romeo Doubs from the Green Bay Packers expected to get a little bit over $15 million per season over 4 years. Jawan Jennings, I think, is one to definitely keep your eye on coming over from San Francisco. I'm sure that connection to Adam Peters is going to, maybe pay dividends for him. He's a very good veteran type of wide receiver, can play in the slot, can play outside, blocks his butt off in the run game. I know David Blau would love that. Really secure hands, and only $14 million over 3 years is a pretty darn good deal compared to some of the other receivers out there. And then Tyquan Thornton, apparently the Commanders are looking to add a lot of speed to the receiver room this year, and Thornton would certainly provide that. The 1 year, $10 million price tag might be worth it for the Commanders. And then De'Ami Brown, who left for Jacksonville this year for a $10 million deal, currently projected at a 1-year, $2.1 million deal. The Commanders might consider bringing him back because he played really well in that playoff run there back in 2024. But what's interesting about this article from Standig is that he doesn't mention Brandon Aiyuk at all. Maybe that's indicating that this team isn't really interested in Aiyuk and they don't want that headache. Bringing in somebody that's had some, let's call them distractions over the last several years on social media and off the field and all those different things. Not to mention he's coming off a major knee injury. But I think at this point it's pretty well reported that the Commanders have been really linked to Brandon Aiyuk. Jaden Daniels made it very clear during Super Bowl week that he wants Aiyuk here. And right now, Spotrac only projects his contract at a 1-year, $12.3 million deal. So what I could see the Commanders doing here, guys, is I could see them sign Aiyuk to that kind of team-friendly 1-year prove-it deal, but then they're also going to feel like they have enough money left over to go get a wide receiver 3 at a decent price tag, whether that's Tyquan Thornton or maybe bringing in Jawan Jennings. I mean, how great would that be to have McLaurin, Jennings, and Aiyuk in the same wide receiver room? That'd be pretty damn special if you ask me. Or maybe they bring back De'Ami Brown, who had a nice connection with Jaden Daniels a couple years ago. Another name to watch of a former Commanders receiver that's going to be hitting the market this offseason is Olamide Zaccheaus. Right now, he's just projected to be like a vet minimum guy, which is like $1.5 million. I think that would be something that I would do if I'm the Washington Commanders. Zaccheaus was awesome for this football team as like a wide receiver 3 type a couple years ago, and he had a great connection with Jaden Daniels. And if I can get him at the ultimate value of a vet minimum contract here in Washington or something close to that, I think that's definitely something I'm down for if I'm the Washington Commanders trying to fill up this wide receiver room. But then Standig also says, talking about some pass catchers here, that there's a quote-unquote decent chance that Washington sticks with the current tight end situation and does not sign one in free agency. And he says what it depends on is how they feel about Ben Sinnott, the second-round pick from a couple years ago. Now, Dan Quinn was asked about Sinnott at the NFL Combine. I thought he gave a very interesting answer in terms of how he sees Sinnott and whether or not he's a replacement for a guy like Zach Ertz in the Commanders' offense.
Yeah, well, I'd say featuring Ben in the ways, that he can do his things. It's in the backfield. It's, through to compare him to Zach. They're way different skill sets, So I know they're both playing tight end, but they're featured differently in that way. And so what I do know is him on the move, and whether it's the run game, pass game, running away from people, maybe not finding the zone and stopping, those are differences. And I'm looking forward to seeing that this year.
Now, that sure sounds to me like Ben Sinnott, or at least according to Dan Quinn, is not somebody that's going to be able to take Zach Ertz's spot as that true receiving weapon in the Commanders' offense from the tight end position. And it honestly sounds like more like he's going to be more of a fullback, or maybe a power running back, and maybe a yak specialist, kind of like a Jonnu Smith, more than he's going to be that true receiving threat, that safety blanket for Jaden Daniels over the middle of the field, finding those soft spots and zones. It seems like that's not going to be Sinnott's role here in 2026. So if that's the case, I do think that the Commanders probably look to add some sort of tight end, a pass-catching tight end this offseason, whether that be in free agency, whether that's bringing back Zach Ertz. Apparently that's still on the table for some reason. And also in the draft, there's some pretty good receiving tight ends in the draft that they can consider as well. But if they don't believe Ben Sinnott's ready to step up there, John Bates is not a receiving tight end. He's a blocking tight end, and he's good at it, and he's good at that job. But I think that the Commanders, knowing how big Zach Ertz has been for Jaden Daniels in his first 2 years, I think it's important to fill that position with somebody that knows what they're doing. And I think that they got to go out and get a tight end at some point this offseason. Then the final point here that Standig made in his article is that he's guessing that Chris Paul is going to end up leaving the Washington Commanders, and he's going to get somewhere between $8 to $15 million per season. That's a pretty hefty contract right there, especially if it gets towards the latter half of that, where it's closer to $15 million. I think Paul, athletic guy for his size, and, somebody that's a good pass protector. And, Dan Quinn laid out exactly the reasons why he loves Chris Paul during the combine. And I think that the Commanders would like to bring back Chris Paul, probably, but it's got to be for the right price. I don't think they're going to overpay for him. I think that left guard spot is one of the more intriguing question marks for the Washington Commanders heading into this offseason. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. What is a bold prediction that you have for the Commanders this offseason? Is it signing Trey Hendrickson? Is it going out and getting Jeremiah Love in the first round of the draft? Like, give me a bold prediction that you have for the Washington Commanders this year down there in the comment section. And that'll be it for today's edition of Commanders News and Rumors. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we're providing you guys with daily updates leading up to NFL free agency and, of course, breaking news updates every time Adam Peters and Dan Quinn make a big move. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Till next time, guys, go raise some hell.